Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Bill here with Sportsman Outreach. Hope you had a good weekend. We had a good weekend, an amazing time at University of Tennessee. There was 13 of us up there. I think Wendell Struck brought his whole family, plus two brothers from South Carolina rolled in, Eric and Steve, and this other young man we met the game before Aaron came in there. So it was an amazing time. I love it. You know, when these games, um, when you have a big game, at least in college, the fans kind of know it. And on this particular Saturday, ESPN also did their pregame show. I'm not sure what it's called anymore, game day or something like that. And so they're on campus early. And so I got to our ministry spot 3 hours ahead of time, and the place was just packed with people. And that gives you really 2.5 good hours of people roaming around, just looking for stuff. And it was completely filled with people. So we had a wonderful time preaching at UT. Oh, Jeff, I forgot about Jeff. Jeff from Bristol. He was there as well. So we had a great group of guys there. So praise the Lord. But I'm excited today to bring on Joe Toy. Joe and I are leaving, Lord willing, this Thursday for London again. And Joe, I believe, been preaching the longest of any of us out there since the late 80s. So we're going to bring Joe on, talk about him preaching in London, the whole thing. Hang on. Joe, how you doing?
I'm doing good.
How was your weekend? How was the game?
The game was busy. We had a hard time getting parking, but the Lord worked it out. Got set up. Crowds were coming. Surprised there was like 8 of us. We had a couple guys show up. We weren't planning on it. So we were well covered. So we were able to work at like 2 different areas. So it was good. I think we passed out maybe about 500
those guys.
tracks.
You don't know that? Okay. Go 500 tracks. Great.
Yeah.
So tell me like your layout up there. I mean, as best you can describe it. I've seen some pictures, but where are you at the campus of North Carolina State, or the stadium there?
Well, the stadium is really not on campus. It's a couple miles away. It's right near I guess that would be called the Carolina Hurricanes hockey arena.
Right.
And right by the North Carolina State farm show place that they have, where they have the state fair.
Right.
So you got one big road coming down called Trinity Road, and it's like a 4-lane road, just brings you right past the stadium. So we're probably about a half block before the main entrance to the stadium.
Wow. So
there's some apartments up the street. A lot of the college kids live in those apartments. They're up there partying, drinking, doing their thing. They come streaming down. We're right aside of the lower end of it where all the tailgaters come, because all the tailgaters are staggered up Trinity Road on both sides of the road. They've got the fraternity and sorority parties. So everybody sort of flows, our way. So it's a really good setup. You have streams of people just walking down the sidewalk.
Wow. So you're in kind of the best spot possible for fans going to the stadium.
I believe so. I mean, we could move down closer right at the entrance, but it might cause somewhat of a conflict.
Right.
Where we're at, we have a little bit of place to get out of the way. So when we have too many guys, we'll send them down right by the entrance, but like a smaller team, so it's not so overwhelming.
Gotcha.
But they have to walk by us anyway, so it all works out.
Cool. Well, that's pretty cool. Who all was with you? The guys you told me about. Who else showed up?
Let's see. We had Zach Brady, his brother Brian. Zach brought his son. Stephen Moore showed up.
Yep.
Peter Firth, Kevin Creasy, Paul and Franco, and I believe myself.
Cool, man. That's exciting, huh?
Yeah, it's just a matter of like trying to text them, say, hey, we're out there. Are you free? See who's available. And then I guess some guys show up later on if they have the time. So I think like I try to make personal contact with the guys, send them a text, invite them back. So I think that kind of works.
That's cool. That's amazing. So now let's just get a little context for you here. You've been preaching since 1988. Is that right?
Started preaching. I was trained in 1984 out at Moody. The open air campaigner guys who were out there, they used a paint board. So I was out there for a 3-week seminar in urban evangelism, got exposed to their ministry. So they took us out preaching on sketchboard. nightlife areas, daytime shopping areas. We worked with kids in neighborhoods. So that was really my first experience with like, how do I say it, evangelism with other people besides just trying to witness to people at the job. You know, when I worked as a CPA, you try to witness, you know, to the guys you worked with, but to be engaged with other men learning, that was like my first time.
Wow. So 1984, it's almost 94, 2004, almost 30 years. What's made me asking these questions? So you're at a game Saturday. You've seen a lot of environments. Does the environment change? So you're standing in front of a group of guys and you're trying to tell them, look, environments do or don't change depending on where you're at. You're just dealing with sinners. Would you say that's true?
Yeah, I mean, that's true, but some environments are more pleasant. You know, like if we go to the North Carolina State Fair, there's a lot of families, a lot of kids. So it's more of a calm, relaxing environment. A lot of thank you for being here. You know, you go to the football game, you get some thank yous, you get some thumbs up, but you also get a lot of people there to have a good time, to party. And we sort of become an annoyance to some of them and get in the way. So it's a different environment. I mean, your alerts are more up at the football game than maybe at the state fair. You know, people aren't going to state fair liquored up. You know, and when you have alcohol, it always kind of makes it a little more dangerous, you know, how people respond and act. So,
Well, you spent the bulk of your time in Philadelphia. You've been in Raleigh a couple of years. So Philadelphia, you covered, when I've listened to you talk about it, Joe, you've been all over the city, including a lot of time in Camden on college campuses and things like that. Just talk about that a little bit, and the sense of interacting with people, how the environment's very.
well, you know, when they trained us at Moody, we were at Chicago, inner city setting. And the open air campaigner guys, you know, they kind of set themselves in cities. So, you know, when I got done with my training, I grew up in a small city called Reading, about 100,000 people in Pennsylvania. So I just was naive enough to take the tools I was trained in and went out and worked the streets, the shopping areas, you know, the neighborhoods, walking around, witnessing to people one-on-one, open air preaching at bus stops, doing some kids ministry, like in housing projects. We do some events like the town fair, some things like that. You know, in time you'd meet people, you gather a team. And, you know, so my ministry's always been around cities. So starting out from Reading, I went to Philly to work with the OAC guys, to learn more, to be mentored. So, you know, when you're in Philly, you're working a lot of in the urban environment, you know, some of the tough neighborhoods, some of the tough communities, working in and around churches in an inner city setting. Of course, colleges in the city are in those settings. You know, University of Penn, Drexel, Temple, the community college are all in urban settings. It gives you a lot of liberty to preach because you're right on sidewalks. You don't have to get permission to go on campus. So, you know, for a lot of my ministry, you know, has always been around urban areas, and especially working around some of the tough neighborhoods, you know, helping pastors with church plants, you know, helping do outreach around their community, you know, bus stations, subway stations, neighborhoods. You know, I don't want to keep on, but that's a lot of what I did. And even now it's a little bit different. Raleigh's a different city, but, you know, just trying to get around colleges, the bus station, events, just trying to find out, okay, where's the mission field? What do we do? Where are we at? You know, working with Tommy Waltz, Gospel of God Ministries, his guys, they've kind of laid the groundwork here. You know, so I just come in and kind of help them and kind of be sort of like boots on the ground, so to speak.
What is the one continuous thing in all those environments? You just talked a little bit about the differences. What is the continuous thing that you've noticed as an evangelist that is consistent on your end?
Well, just, you know, you see the lostness of people, you know, the drug addiction, the homelessness problem, the waywardness. Truly, it's like people are like sheep. They've gone astray. You know, they don't know where to go. They don't know what to believe. You know, one of the things I've seen from the 80s up till now, I see a lack of spiritual depth in people, spiritual knowledge, understanding even of what the Bible it contains, what it teaches, how much people know. One of the things I see now that grieves me is just, talking to the young people, even at sort of a Bible Belt area, they don't really even understand the basics of the gospel. Who God is, the reality of sin, the seriousness of sin, what the cross is and what that all represents. I asked a Christian boy the other day, I said, so I've got 2 minutes and I'm lost and I need Jesus. What would you tell me? And he said, well, I'd tell you to read the Bible. And I said, wait a minute, I've got 2 minutes. Where do I start? What would I read? I mean, that wouldn't really even help me. And he kind of stammered and stuttered. And fortunately, his friend helped him, to share the gospel. So really, it's just, I see a real lack of understanding of, especially young people who are churched or have a touch point in regards to the gospel, is they can't even share it. They don't even know what it means. But it's always like that, even up in Philly. A lot of Catholics, a lot of religion, Lutheran churches, United Church of Christ. Then you get some of the Pentecostal / charismatic movement. So a lot of it's just a lack of understanding of biblical truth.
Gotcha. Wow. Well, cool. So would you say, I was thinking the other day, see if you agree, and then we'll talk about London a little bit, that because we want results, right? Everybody says, what are your results? But really, at the end of the day, once you start to notice is that, especially as an adult, is that people, well, you could say it like this: people they don't want to do what we're saying. No one wants to see God. No one's after God, right? And so even Christian people really have a hard time, being disciplined about their devotion. You just described it. And so part of our job, really, a minister's job, is to push people to continue to help them to seek the Lord, right? It's kind of that simple. In other words, part of all we're doing is trying to inch them along a little bit at a time, keep them on the narrow way, stuff like that. That's really a good result. Do you agree with what I'm saying?
Yeah. Down here, say in the Raleigh area where I'm working now, praying through the reaction, and especially some of the college kids and some of the people at the games, even some of the events. We have a lot of young people show up these events, like the Gay Pride Day, Packapalooza, Boogaloo, some of these things. We show up, GalaxyCon, the anime, that a lot of young people gravitate toward that. Is, I think, one of the things we try to share is, what's your point of identity? Everyone's looking for an identity, whether it's a comic book character, whether it's your sexual identity, whether it's your identity, like I'm a Wolfpack fan, and just really challenging the people to think about, your identity should be in God. Your identity should be that you're created by God. Your identity should be that you're a child of God through faith in Christ, or does that matter to you? Trying to, bring that message across to the people. Because people, whether at the games or at the universities, people are trying to identify with something. So, we're trying to bring the reality of identifying with God, being created by him, being saved by him, and being a follower of him. And I think that's a message, trying to convey to the people, especially in this area.
That's interesting. That's a good point. Good point.
The other thing I was thinking too is so the other thing I've been thinking through and praying through is especially here, a place where there's a lot of churches, a lot of good churches, a lot of evangelical / Baptist churches, and etc. Is thinking through 2 Timothy 1, where Paul reminds Timothy not to cower in fear. So, you think a lot of young people, they know these things, but they're afraid. What do their friends say? What do their college friends say? So going through the first chapter and saying, hey, remember your grandmother, remember your mother, remember my relationship with you, Paul says to Timothy, remember what the gospel even is, and trying to stir up the fact that God is doing this stuff in your life for a reason. He's bringing these truths across your life so you can be saved, and trying to remind the kids of that, the young people, to not forsake, their Christian upbringing or their Christian heritage or the truths that they know.
That's a great point. Great point.
I mean, just one last point is that at UNC, I talked to a girl that turned all that aside to become a lesbian. And I challenged her and I said, are you seeking God? anymore. And just tears well up in her eyes. And she got up and just walked away.
Wow.
Because her lifestyle and her sin choice pushed her away from even seeking God at all.
What did she say? Did she blame somebody for her position, or did she acknowledge that she just wanted to do it?
I think, I don't think she really blamed anyone. It's really easy to say, well, the church doesn't like me, especially if the church might, be against it. But there wasn't really any hostility in her heart. More so like, any hostility. She had like a sort of abusive father. So I think that kind of wasn't too helpful in her life. But she didn't really have any animosity toward the church too much.
Gotcha. That's interesting. Good points. Well, let's talk about going to London. How many times have you been over there? Do you remember?
I think this might be 4.
4 times. Seems like.
I think we were there for some kind of like track and field event, and then I think 2 other NFL London. So I think this is number 4.
Cool. So what do you like about going to London? Why do you want to go to London?
Well, I think this is sort of like a culmination of, wanting to go in, what was it, 2020, and we couldn't.
Right.
The plan to go in 2020. And I just felt, well, we were going to go in 2020, let's go the next time we can get in. Already had money put aside, I'd set some money aside to go. I still have it, I earmarked it for this trip. So just wanting to be faithful in that. I think the last trip, I really liked the last trip. I mean, not I liked all of them, but like, I think what was really cool is we went into a lot of different little parts of London.
Right.
So that was kind of neat to go into different places like Camden Town, Brixton, and White Chapel, White Church, I forget, where mostly predominantly Bengali/Muslim people.
Yeah.
So that was kind of interesting being up in Wimbledon. I think it was neat just, hitting some different areas. So that was a lot of fun, a lot of challenge because you don't know how you're going to be received. But that kind of made it exciting, a little different. And there's always lots of people in London. I mean, this, like, they're so geared, like public transportation, there's flows of people almost everywhere in like the downtown, tube stops. So it's really kind of exciting that way. And of course, like Tottenham was kind of cool too, because they had that, like, if you remember, they had that like street fair before the NFL game. So it wasn't like the rush at Wembley. We're in, we're out. It was kind of people were lingering around, meandering around. So that was kind of a nice environment too, to preach and to talk to people.
Good setup. That's true. Lots of people. What else do you think about it, or maybe you don't think about that much, but about going to London that's different than being here? Anything? People in general, or the setup?
I don't know. I mean, I'm not an expert. The people there seem to be a little bit less. Some seem to be a little more cold. They're not as open to talk. And most of the places I've gone to, it's not the best place in the world if you love to hand out tracts. People mostly ignore you with your literature. But the Lord has always given us people to talk to on and off. Some of my perceptions, from being there is I felt like maybe the African church God would use to bring revival, because the African people a lot of times were out, like say Stratford, the African people are out there that, preaching, witnessing, being a little more aggressive, and sharing their faith. A lot of times they'd even come up and help us or stop to hold a sign. So that was kind of neat.
Yeah.
Britain and I was in Scotland once, and which is a different thing, but they seem to be further down the road in the sense of like postmodernism. There's no absolute truth, evolution, real more distant from issues of faith. But our country's sliding that way now too. So I don't know how far we're away from where they're at.
Right.
Our country's following the same path. We have issues with hate speech in our country like we do over there. Although, we can preach a little bit about Islam here and LGBTQ, and we don't get the heat that you would over there. But it's definitely moving that way. But I like it's a good trip. It's nice working with the guys, more relaxed, more fellowship. and just a way to get out of the country. I think sometimes it inspires you to get out of your turf, go somewhere different, build you up in the faith, more challenges. So I like that aspect of it.
Do you find it hard to go over there and start preaching, or is it a pretty easy transition?
No, I think it's a pretty easy transition. I don't really find it hard to preach there. A lot of times I just end up preaching through the Gospels. Although I think this year I might try to focus on the book of Hebrews a little bit. I don't know what that means, but I don't think it's really hard. Maybe sometimes our illustrations maybe are a little weird because we're from the States, but I don't really find it hard.
Well, plus they have such a Christian heritage over there. There is some semblance of right connection. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, there's believers there. I mean, there's people that love the Lord there. And, there's a lot of guys that preach over there. So it's not like they're absent from having any gospel witness. So, I mean, so like they're not totally anti-Bible, maybe not totally anti-God. I've never really had people like kind of getting in my face too much, screaming and yelling at me there. Not to any drastic extent. I think maybe they have maybe a little more manners than we do over here. I don't know. That's just maybe a guess.
Right. That's true. That's true. Well, that's good. What do you like, the Highbury Center? You enjoy staying there?
Yeah, it's nice there. It's relaxing, quiet, nice place to rest. Yep. Yeah, I think it's fine, especially since you have us working so hard. I mean, from walking to the tube to standing all day to coming back, walking back. So it's a nice place, quiet, have your own room, you get good sleep. And of course they feed you good. You can tank up in the morning, so you're running, with a lot of nutrition in you in the morning to, kind of hit it and go at it. Plus the tube stops are close to get anywhere. So yeah, it's good.
Yeah, that's what's so neat about it. I love that. Well, cool. That's great. Any other thoughts about going? Would you, if you were going to encourage some guys to go, why would you tell them to go?
I tell them to go just to kind of get out of the States, go somewhere different, meet different people, see how the gospel received somewhere else. It's a stretching time. We're all busy, maybe 6 to 7 hours a day. So it real stretches your spiritual, how do I want to say it? Your spiritual strength, your mental strength, your physical strength. I mean, it's just, real busy, 8, 9, 10 days. And it gives you a perspective on the country, what they deal with, the people. So, I enjoy it. I mean, I enjoy just going and preaching the gospel, and, I enjoy the fellowship with the guys, the small teams and working together, eating together. The fellowship is great. I don't know what else to say except there's just a lot of lost people over there that need the Lord, just like here.
That's for sure. That's true. That's cool. Okay, let me ask you a couple of closing questions. So just imagine this, back to the scenario. You're in front of a group of 100 guys and trying to give them some instructions that you've learned over since 1984. So what would you say would be the top one or two steps an evangelist needs? So I'm talking about preparational steps that an evangelist has to do in his own time, in his own life, to be an effective evangelist. What would be the top one or two things?
Well, the number one thing is you can't lack in your walk with God. How do you want to say this? Anyone like is out there working has to know their craft. If you're a plumber, you have to know what you're doing. If you're an electrician, you have to know what you're doing. If you're a teacher, you have to know your subject. So you have to really, be a student of the Word of God. You have to be strong in your theology. So you have to be always on a path of growth, training up your mind to know the things of God. You have to also be a person of prayer because you need God to help you. You have to, surround yourself with people who encourage you. I've been blessed to always have myself surrounded by men. When I was younger, I had godly older men that mentored me and helped me. Working with teams, not being a lone ranger, because you have accountability in a group of men. But the other thing is just a step of faith. This is what God has called me to do. This is what I feel I should be doing, whether as full time or whether as a layman. God has called me to be an evangelist. So finding those times to get out, because you grow even while you're out there. You get asked things. You go through circumstances that stretch your faith, stretch your beliefs, stretch your knowledge, and you're basically on the front lines of having to grow, having to pray. So I think those things are helpful. And sometimes, even when your team can't come, you say, okay, God wants me to do this. You go out by yourself. I mean, it's just, you stay at the task.
Stay focused. What would be the top one or two things that get guys into trouble?
Well, I think the issue we all struggle with is pride. I know more than my pastor. I know more than others. I got a handle on the Bible. There's nothing I can learn, or there's no growth I need in my life. That can get you in trouble. Not being willing to work with others can get you in trouble, because what does it say in Ecclesiastes? Two are better than one. If one falls, his brother's there to pick him up. If I'm out there working by myself, who's there to tell me, hey, you're harsh today? Hey, you're off target today. You're being rude, or hey, you're not, sharing the right thing, whatever, so you need to be mindful of your pride, be mindful of working by yourself, and be mindful too that, you're involved in a church. We have to say this again. You have to, the evangelist is part of the church. So you got to be grounded, rooted in some kind of church. Because there's always a tendency to say, people don't understand me. People don't believe in what I do. So there's this tendency to pull away from the church, but yet we need to be a part, of a church, or find a church that knows what we do, supports what we do, or doesn't bother us in what we do, So I think those are good things to keep in mind. I had a guy say to me, and I work with some younger guys, and I'm always reading. And one of the young guys, Samuel, said to me, gee, brother, I can't believe you're sharing with this to me. You're actually reading this book. I would think you know all this stuff. No, I don't know everything. I can always learn things. I learned a lot from Tommy. Tommy's more gentle than me. I'm a city guy, more combative. You're more grow up in a more aggressive environment. So I need to learn more gentleness. So you see that. Always being willing to learn and grow. I think that's, helps you stay fresh, helps you stay focused, helps you stay close to the Lord. Realizing that you don't have all the answers. You've never arrived, so to speak, in your spiritual life.
Good stuff. That's good. Okay. Joe, if somebody wants to contact you to join you in the Raleigh area, just ask some questions, how would you like for them to contact
you? They could, if they want, they can text me on my phone.
What's your number?
610
okay.
324 1671.
Okay.
That'd be fine.
Good. Okay.
That'd be a good way to get started.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, Joe, great to chat with you. Thanks so much.
You too. Thanks, Bill. What's that?
Anything else you want to share?
I don't know. I'm not really. Maybe if you threw another question out, I'd have something else to say. But I think my mind's kind of like blank at this point.
Okay. All right, brother. Look forward to seeing you Friday, Lord willing.
Okay, brother. Looking forward to it.
All right, Joe. Have a good day.
See you, Bill. Thanks.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, Joe Toy friends, if you've got an interest in getting started or want to learn more, call or text Joe right there. Man, he's certainly, like he was saying, we got a little bit of that, a little glimpse into that, of a wealth of experience with lots of different people and running trips down to Mardi Gras and other things. He's been a Super Bowl outreach team leader and been to London, lots of stuff, preaching in the city of Philadelphia for I guess 25 years or so, 25, maybe 30 years. I can't keep the math up, but all over that city. So, man, he's a guy to go to get a lot of understanding on and mentoring what to do next. He clearly wants to be available to help mentor men getting into this work. So please feel free to contact Joe and see what he's got to say. All right, friends, listen, got to go. Hope you have a good week. Hope you preach somewhere this week or this weekend. Contact me if I can be of help to you, 423-724-7500. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.